Hi, Bob. Thanks for joining us today. How are you?
I'm fine, Eric. Yeah, I'm fine. I'm like everybody else. I'm adjusting to all the changes that life has thrown at us over the last few weeks.
Absolutely, absolutely. Are you still finding it possible to do what you did before from the home environment? Are you still able to do it all?
Yeah. In fact, I'm doing some different things now because in the past I was reluctant to do a lot of traveling.
Right.
It meant that geography was a constraint. Whereas now, because everything's been done through this medium, then geography becomes less of a constraint. So I'm happy to participate in things now that previously I would have shied away from because I thought I really don't have the time to commit to do the traveling.
Absolutely. And are you as well as all the new stuff that you're taking on, are you managing to do things that are maybe off the beaten path to keep yourself sane? Are you managing to keep
Yeah, I mean, I live across the road from a golf course, and I'm going to petition the owners of the golf course not to reopen it because it's the best jogging track known to man. They've got all this lovely manicured bits of grass with nobody hitting balls up and down them, so I can go for a trundle round the golf course in the morning, and particularly if it's bright and sunny, there's nothing better. It's a great way to start the day.
Absolutely. It kind of changed. Was it Mark Twain that said golf was a good walk wasted, a good jog wasted now, right? Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And just on a personal note, I was interested to find out just from the cyber stalking that I've been doing of you recently that you've got an interest in art. We share an interest in art. Are you managing to keep your hand in? Are you doing anything arty or crafty?
Yeah, well, I've done something recently. I've become a kind of amateur woodworker, and I thought one of my projects recently was I took some scraps of wood to make myself a new easel. And I've got an easel in the house, and it's
Right.
big and clunky, but I wanted one that I could actually stick on top of my workbench, which I also made, which is on wheels, so that I can do it outside, or I can do it in the garage, or I can take advantage of kind of if it's a nice day, I don't have to be stuck in the house. I can get outside and I can do a bit. And yeah, I'm hoping to do a bit more as a result of the project easel, which is just finished. Yeah.
I think it's if someone can't. I mean, it's easy to say, "Oh, you should be taking up new things and getting back into old things." A lot of people are extremely busy and extremely worried. But I think if you can afford the time just to take 20 minutes, half an hour out in the day to do something, that clears your mind a little bit and sort of sends you into the zone, I think it's healthy, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And I also have a kind of discipline for myself is that I try not to work on Fridays at all. So Fridays the kind of computer's switched off, and I've got my work clothes on, and I'm out attacking bits of the garden
Yeah.
or painting things that are and power washing anything that doesn't move. Basically, that's the
Yeah,
criteria.
so one of the reasons we wanted to talk to you is clearly not going to go into the whole backstory of Bob because we only have about 20 minutes, half an hour. But it's been a rich and varied life that you've had. But the thing that I wanted to ask you about was you've been at the helm of some pretty big, meaty, complex companies through market dips, through recessions, through when times are not as good as we hoped they would be. One of the things I was really keen to ask you and find out about was when you were in those positions, what was your go-to position? What stick did you grab to focus on to get people through that?
I mean, it's a great question, but I would say up front, they say that wisdom comes from experience. None of us have experienced what we're going through just now. So anybody purporting to know the answers and being able to see the future clearly needs to be treated with a degree of skepticism,
Mm.
including me.
Yeah.
I would absolutely say that. But in terms of the question you asked specifically, yeah, there was often a sense here that if we know what we're all about and we know what we're trying to achieve and we stick to that and we keep that as our true north, then we make the decisions against that metric, then that will help us to make sure we're doing the right things in the right time and we're doing it for the longer term benefit of everybody involved. And an example of that would be, if you can, for us, it was basically around about the values of the organisation. If the values of the organisation are the things that are the things that we never want to kind of in any way dilute, then every time we're making a difficult decision, hold it up against these values. And if the option that best fits those set of values are the ones that we should be taking, even if in the short term they don't appear logically the best way to either increase your revenues or reduce your costs or increase your profits.
And that resolve, it takes resolve in itself. That fixation to stay with the values. I mean, it takes strong minds to do that when the waves are coming over the side of the ship, right? And a lot of organizations, you'll hear some of the values sort of smash in the distance or go out the window, but to keep on that path and measure everything against that takes some real strength.
I think it does, but I think when you're under pressure, that's the time when your real kind of character comes through and doing the right thing. I'll give you an example, for instance. I mean, we had a tragic event a few years ago where one of our staff went to work on a platform in the Gulf of Mexico. A crane collapsed, and he happened to be there at the time. The crane collapsed and fell and crushed him to death. Absolute tragedy. And at the time, we placed a lot of onus on the care for our people, and I wanted to share with my team that this was a tragedy, and our hearts and minds should go out to the family and friends of this young person. And I named the person. The legal team were aghast. They said, "You can't do that. It's as good as admitting liability." I said, "No, it's not. And quite frankly, I don't care whether your advice, because our values, if we care about people, we can't just call somebody an injured party, because it sounds so, devoid of any humanity and things like that." So sometimes it's a case of doing what ultimately, maybe the legal guys were right. Maybe it wasn't a wise thing to do legally, but it was the right thing to do when you considered it from a position of values.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. I think defining those values is something that you're known for. You talk about, doing core values and all that sort of stuff. At what point in your career did you realize that setting values in stone and sticking with them was going to be, was that younger in your life or later on?
Yeah, no, it was a progressive thing. I'd love to say there was a kind of a eureka moment, and I kind of saw the light and all that. But it was over a number of years working for organisations where I saw the hypocrisy of people saying one thing but actually doing another, and actually having these so-called company values or cornerstone principles, and then riding roughshod over them. And I thought there has to be a better way. There has to be a way of being truer to who you are. And it starts with this definition of, well, who are you and what do you stand for?
Yeah.
And leaders of the business, to my mind, should say whatever that is. And maybe we stand for maximizing profits by exploiting everybody. And much as I think that's terrible, if that's your core mantra in your business and you're true to it, then at least people know what they're dealing with. But it's the organizations that claim to be one thing and then are another. So one of the things I do when I'm doing training courses on this is I hold up various sets of values and I ask people to identify whose values these are. And one of them, which looks like a perfectly decent set of core values, happens to be Enron's.
Right.
And of course, if they followed their values, they wouldn't have done anything like they did, and we wouldn't be speaking about them today. But it's just a great example of companies. They like the sound of values because it's good PR and it's good marketing. But in reality, when it comes down to it, it's about the decisions people make, the choices they make, and the actions that people take.
Yeah, it's kind of like, I think we've both come across significant demonstrations of value theatre in our lives, where when the crunch goes on, it does absolutely change. So what keeps you busy these days? What's your sort of main focus? What are you working on?
Yeah, well, I'm in a fortunate position that when I kind of stepped down from corporate life, I had the ability to pick and choose how I spent my time. And the easy option would have been to just take on some non-executive positions or maybe a chairman's role here or whatever and just spend my time doing that. But I thought, no, there's an opportunity here to actually use some of the kind of mistakes I've made, or as you might call it, experience, and use that to help others. So I thought I'm going to dedicate 4 days a week, every week, helping others unpaid. And so that's what I do now. So I help entrepreneurs, I help growth businesses, I help public sector, and I help charities, and I help social enterprises on their journeys to try and do more or do better. So I spend a lot of time working with a number of different charities, a number of different social enterprises, lots and lots of entrepreneurs, and all of it I'm helping them. And most of it's on a pro bono basis for them. Some of the bigger companies I work with, I charge, but I don't take any money out of it. I use that money to fund all the work I do with the charities, etc., by circulating it back and putting it back in. And it gives me a huge freedom because I'm never on anybody's payroll. I can be really honest with people and I can give them kind of real feedback that really helps them. And it's hugely kind of, it's liberating for me, but it also means I can say no when people said, I'd like you to come and help us. And I'm saying, no, I don't think so. I don't think I'm the right person to do that. And it gives you that sense of honesty that allows you to say, look, I'm coming to help you because I can.
So you must get some interesting proposals and documents across your desk with people saying, give us a look at this and see what you think. It must happen fairly regularly.
Yeah, I do, and sometimes people will send me a video and say, "Look, this is a talk that I did recently. What do you think?" Or they'll send me a document that says, "This is our sales proposal. What do you think?" And the basic principles are the same in either of these contexts. And I'm looking for people who are authentic. They're being real. They're telling me stuff in a way that the same way they would talk to me over a cup of coffee or a glass of wine. When people start using what I call ESP, which is empty sales pitch, and they start talking to me about using these empty, vacuous phrases about how we're going to be disrupting all future markets and we're a leader. I was at one recently where there was a number of entrepreneurs pitching for significant funding, and there was I think there was 14 pitches on the day. And one of the guys stood up and said, my team is a world-class rock star team. And I don't know where those expression came from, because I expected to see, based on that, I expected to recognize every single name that was going to then come up. And what he then put up was a slide with 4 pictures on it of people who had moderate levels of experience. There was nothing wrong with the team, but the fact that he'd chosen to use the labels of world-class and rock star almost immediately made me think, this guy really is one to be avoided because he's just not being truthful, he's not being honest. So getting people that can talk simply, clearly, straightforward, get their ideas across simply, and put what the value they're creating out there for people. It's such a simple thing to talk about, but in reality, a lot of people get caught up in this idea, I need to sound impressive. Yeah. I need to use terms that I'm going to impress people, and it kind of backfires. Yeah.
Absolutely. And I'm guessing now that you're free from the corporate shackles, if I can call them that, I guess in the work that you're doing, meeting new entrepreneurs with new ideas and new innovation, I'm just speaking from personal perspective, which will be very different from your perspective, but when you do step out of that and broaden your horizons, the amazing worlds that you step into, the amazing brains that you step into, and finding out what's going out there is incredible, right?
Yeah, I mean, particularly in the third sector, I mean, the work that people do in a lot of the third sector organizations, they don't do it for the money. None of them do it for the money. They do it because they care. They do it on a shoestring. Funding is often very limited. They do work that transforms people's futures and their lives as they are at present. And they work exceptionally hard, exceptionally long hours. So anything I can do to help them on the way feels as though I'm kind of doing some good for them. But what I do is nothing compared to the work that they do. If I can help them on the way, that's great. But they're the ones that are actually looking after the children who need that support, looking after the old people, looking after the frail, etc. And it's humbling to see some of the work that is done. And you meet the people that are doing it and you help them on their journey and you help them to get a little bit more out of it, then that's hugely satisfying as well.
Do you think, odd question has just come to me, but with the work that you're doing now and the sort of audience that you're tapping into now, do you think if you could have gone back 30 years to Bob Keiller, do you think, and had a word with him, do you think you would have stayed on the same path, or do you think you might have veered more into that earlier?
Yeah, I mean, it's almost as if you're suggesting that I had a plan at any point.
How dare I?
Yeah. I've always considered the word career to be a verb rather than a noun. It's something you do, you career from one decision to the next. And I've always, I'd love to look back and then join the dots and say, yeah, this was part of a long
grand scheme.
Grand scheme. But that would be disingenuous. I started off wanting to paint album covers, as you know, for heavy metal bands. I went to study engineering as in Scotland we call it a trade to fall back on.
Yep.
So I did that, and then I went and I worked with Hewlett Packard in electronics, and I realised I've not really got the mindset that makes me excited about the frequency response curve of an electronic circuit. I can do it, I can understand it, but I don't get excited about it. So I then jumped and went into the oil and gas industry, which felt more exciting and more challenges. And again, I realized after 3 or 4 years that the engineering side of it, again, though I can do it, it doesn't make me, passionate about it. But working with people and working with teams, I really, really enjoyed. So I didn't know that before I set out. And then on average, every 18 months, I was faced with a challenge to say, do you want to do something different? And I was always thinking, I could stay where I am, or I could do something different. And if that something different is somewhere I'm going to learn more, then hell yeah, let's do it. And I moved jobs, I say, on average about every 18 months, mostly within organizations, but occasionally jumping between organizations. And in doing so, I ended up getting a breadth of experience that I'd never really planned to do. So I worked onshore, offshore, I worked for big companies, small companies, I worked for operators, I worked for contractors, and worked in various roles. So by the time came that I had the opportunity to step into broader management leadership roles, I accumulated a lot of experience across a lot of different fronts. It wasn't planned, but it turned out that that's exactly what was needed to be able to step forward at that point.
It's always intrigued me about people that have started out in one career path, sucked out all the knowledge out of that, and then decided, no, this isn't for me, move on to the next one. Great. Because there are many people who stuck in art, who stuck in engineering, who stuck in control systems and had a great and lovely life and were quite happy at doing it. I wonder, is it nature or nurture that makes people like you, and a wee bit to me to some degree, because I've moved from career path to career path and looked over there and thought, I'll go and try that for a while. Where do you think it comes from? Is it genetic, or is it something that's just you've just fancied?
I think it's always best to jump ship before you get found out. So the imposter syndrome has always played a large part in my thinking here. But no, in reality, I think there's something here about restlessness. Okay, I understand that. I've got this. Let's move on. What else can we do? So it wasn't about any kind of self-aggrandizement or about any goal to be in any position or any job title. It was never driven by any of these things. It was like, this stuff's really interesting. I don't understand it. And then after a few months, you think, I'm beginning to understand it. After a year, you're thinking, right, I've got them on top of this. And then you're able to say, I think we could do this better. Yeah. And then once you've done that, you think, okay, what's the next challenge? Let's keep moving on. So it's that kind of restlessness. So to some extent, when I stepped down from the corporate role, having spent most of my career in private sector, I thought I really like to get exposure into the public sector. And that's when the opportunity came up with Scottish Enterprise. And I thought there's a great opportunity to be able to look at other elements of Scottish society. And then the work I'm doing now in the third sector as well also gives me exposure into there. I'm working more closely with academia than I've done in the past. And it's opening up new doors all over the place. And I don't have an agenda. I'm not trying to sell anything. Yeah. And I'm not trying to push anything. And I'm not trying to, get a role or anything like that. So it's hugely, it gives me a lot of potential to connect people. So yesterday, for instance, I was hosting a conference for Napier University, and we had people on the call from Social Investment Scotland, Church of Scotland, Social Enterprise Scotland, investors, equity investors, angel fund investors, all sorts of different people there that, again, in my previous corporate hat, I wouldn't even had any opportunity to meet these people.
No, not at all. No, it's fantastic. I think a big part of this sort of community exchange and community growth is coming through what's been happening in the last 10 years plus, maybe the digital transformation, which is now becoming more of a social transformation as well. Are you seeing more of that in your sort of day-to-day life?
I think the lessons from the last 5 or 6 weeks are going to be the important ones. I was on a call yesterday with the head of Cyrenians in Scotland, and we talked about the issue of homelessness, for instance, and said that both the Scottish government and the UK government have always had a 5-year plan for homelessness. At any point in time, there was always a 5-year forward plan. So it was always 5 years kind of away from the solution. In reality, what's happened, certainly in Scotland, is that in the last few weeks, because we've needed to, we've found accommodation for people that were homeless.
Yeah.
So we've got people in hotels now being looked after with support services round about them that we couldn't do this time last year, and we're doing it now, and people are telling me about far higher levels of collaboration and cooperation, far quicker responsiveness from support agencies and decision-making bodies and funding bodies, a collective spirit of people wanting to do right because we're all citizens and we're all working alongside each other. These are the things that I think are fantastic lessons about how society can change when it needs to. And our challenge is, how do we avoid that all just slipping away as the wheels of the economy begin to turn again?
Yeah, absolutely. On that, and just drawing to a close, your final words on, as the wheels of the economy do begin to turn again, Bob, what are your hopes for the future? Clearly, we hope for markets to pick up and all of that, but your hopes for change for the future and anything positive that might come out of this that might carry through?
Yeah, I mean, I'm hoping that this creates a catalyst when people realise what's important and realise that there's been lots of people talking for a long time about purpose-led organisations and about the need to put something back into society. But in reality, when you look at it, most businesses are driven by a need to provide returns to investors and shareholders. Having a different way of looking at that says, well, actually, yeah, that's fine. Yeah, you know, and investors need to get some returns, because ultimately that could be funding somebody's pension plan for some, you know, school teacher down the road, whatever it happens to be. But there has to be a different focus to say that's not enough. That's not enough. As organisations now, because we have the resources, because we have the talent, because we have the funding, there should be an implied obligation that if you can help, you should help. And that takes us beyond the kind of current kind of corporate model. And I'd love to be part of the journey that makes that happen in a way that people can say, actually, no, yeah, we need to do more than tokenism in terms of donating a small amount to charity every year. We need to actually mobilise what we've got for the benefit of others.
I think that's a fitting point to end it. Bob, how can people get in touch with you if they are one of these entrepreneurs that's struggling or whatever, or just needs some advice?
Yeah, I'm easy to find on LinkedIn. That's probably the best first point of contact. A lot of people do contact me on LinkedIn, and if I can help, I generally do. Sometimes I can't. Sometimes I'm honest in saying, look, that if they're in an area or a technology that I know nothing about, I'm not going to pretend that I can help them when I can. But often I can put them in contact with other people that can.
Very good. Listen, it's been a pleasure to talk to you. Thanks very much for coming on the Crux Cast. Good luck with the easel and everything else that you do. Project Easel.
I will send you a picture. I'm doing one at the moment, Eric, of, it's a scene from the grass market.
Wow.
But I've been doing it for a long time, and the more I do it, the less and less it looks like Edinburgh. So I'm hoping to get that done soon, and I'll send you a picture of it when it's done.
I'd love that.
You probably think it's a Jackson Pollock's or something like that when you see it.
Listen, thanks very much, Bob. We'll see you soon. Thanks a lot.
Thanks.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.